Hello and welcome into the Birds of the Roundtable. Tonight, we are fully kicking it into off-season mode. We're going to take a look at the Eagles' pending free agents, and we're going to do a stay or go edition of the show. Welcome in, all of you guys. Be sure you're dropping comments here live. Let us know what you think of these players, and we'll interact with you guys as we go along. But I'm your host, Shane Haff. Give me a follow on Twitter at Shane Haff NFL. Joined by the whole Birds of the Roundtable crew. We've got Dibes. Give him a follow on Twitter at Mr. Crockpot. Dibes, how are you doing tonight?
Doing well, man. If you were to put a gun to my head, I would take Zach Bond over everyone else. Eagles free agent wise coming back. Give me Zach Bond. Let's do this.
All right. I wonder if Dibes is going to say Zach Bond should stay or go. Ryan, give him a follow on Twitter at Philly Sports PSA. Come for his shower curtain backdrop, stay for his Kenny Gainwell should stay takes. Ryan, how are you doing?
You guys are already with the jokes. All right, love it. Listen, I'm feeling great. There's nothing that's even your off-color comments can put me down. I'm flying high still from last week, and yeah, I'm ready to get into. Going to be a fun-filled offseason, that's for sure.
Yeah, I saw on Reddit that somebody was taking the Merrill Reese's call of the game and like syncing it up with the video of the game and was going to release it later this week. So I'm planning a rewatch of the game as soon as I get hands on that. So that sounded really cool. I never get to listen to Merrill call games, not being local. I only get to hear like the little clips that end up on Twitter. So I'm definitely looking forward to that.
It's the only way to do it, man. It's the only way to do it.
Yeah, it'll be fun to do that later this week for sure. Also joined by David. Give him a follow on Twitter at PHL Eagle News. David, a few weeks ago you mentioned like a new Twitter handle. Where are we at on that? Are you still wanting to change that? Are we still workshopping?
I'm gonna have to do it during the off season because of a lot of inability I'm able to do on my handle once I do that. Like I am out of commission for a few weeks, so I have to strategically choose what part of the off season to do that. But
I know exactly when. It's right after voluntary OTAs.
Yeah, something.
That like 3-week lull before.
Yeah, right around then. Yeah.
All right.
And I'll do a poll of what I should pick. Kenny Gainwell's biggest fan.com. I don't know, something. We'll figure it out.
Jalen Carter for life.
Yeah.
I still got to finish rewatching or watching the whole mic'd up thing that NFL Films put out too. I've watched part of it on YouTube, but I keep getting distracted because Dibes is making me do a draft show after this, and I had to rank my crappy quarterbacks for this class. But we'll get into that after this show on Armchair Scouts. So welcome in, everybody. We're going to dive in here. We're just going to work through the free agents list. And so we'll go offense first and then defense. So let's start off with probably the biggest name on the offense, I think. Most of the big names are on the defense, but it's Mekhi Becton. The Eagles bring Mekhi Becton in on the 1-year deal. They put him at right guard. And I'm curious what the market's going to be for Becton. Like, I think that Eagles fans overrate Becton and his impact off of some clips of him pancaking linebackers. GGN's on board with me here, says Becton's overrated. I think he was a good piece for the Eagles. And I would bring him back if he's signing a cheap deal to play offensive guard. But I almost feel like there's such a shortage of offensive line play, and there's going to be some GM that sees those clips of him pancaking linebackers and is like, we got to get this guy in the building, and pays him way too much money. Or some team is going to convince themselves we can kick him back out to tackle. So I would be happy to bring Becton back on a smaller $3, $4, $5 million deal. I just kind of feel like he's going to get priced out of that, and some team's going to go give him big time guard money or lower tackle money, which is about the same. So I think Becton's gone. I'd bring him back at the right price. But David, what are your thoughts on Becton? Stay or go?
Yeah, Becton is the only offensive starter that's not signed for next season. And the front office's faith in Tyler Steen, coupled with what you just said, Becton, what he can command on the open market. He can play inside or outside. He has shown that he can do that, and some GM will buy into that. and he's earned the right to go out there and see what he can get. You know, he loved his time in Philly, so I do see a pathway to, for him to come back. But more than likely, it's, I would put him at 50%, man. It's like a coin toss with him. I think the Eagles would like to have him back on a good contract, like you had mentioned. But at the end of the day, I do think that what he can do is going to be more valuable somewhere else than it is in Philadelphia.
Yeah, I could also see a pathway where, he was in New York and it was terrible. And then he comes to Philadelphia and wins the Super Bowl. And you saw the reaction from him after the game. I could also see a pathway where, he was a first round pick. He got a good contract as a rookie. I could see a pathway where the Tennessee Titans come calling and are like, hey, come play offensive line for us on a crappy team. And he's like, I'll take 60% of what you're offering to come back to Philly. And I a lot of times I think it's preposterous. Some of the times fans are like, oh, they'll take a team friendly deal. And you don't know what motivates a guy, but I could see a pathway where, having been the draft pick that he was, so he got a good contract and been in such a bad situation before coming here, maybe he does want to stay around. You can never really say too much about those motivations. But Dibes, where are you at with Becton?
Yeah, I agree with what everyone's saying here, and I agree with pretty much everyone in the comment section. There's a lot of people that are team he can go with Mekhi Becton. He was such a great story. I agree. Like, on the surface level, like, he had a lot of fun tape, just mauling people in the run game. But there was also some bad tape and pass protection. It wasn't perfect by any means. I agree. I'm curious. I'm fascinated by what he decides this offseason. Does he go for the quality of life? I mean, we all saw him at the end of the NFC Championship game, at the end of the Super Bowl, just tearing up, hugging everybody on the sideline. You can say that with a couple of these guys. And they did say that during the Super Bowl parade and things like that. He's going to want to raise. He's not at all out of the mud in terms of kind of clearing his name. When he was with the Jets, he was injury prone and he was labeled a bust. And he did say he wants to stay at guard, which is key. I think I would love to have him back on a short-term deal, another just 1 year prove-it deal. But at the end of the day, I am not faulting this dude whatsoever to go out there and get that bag. And if he does, so be it. But like the comment said, we have Tyler Steen, we have Trevor Keegan that's developing as well, that I'm a big fan of. Ryan's not a big fan of, but for me, he can go.
All right, Ryan, what are your thoughts on Becton? Will he stay or go?
Listen, I understand the whole money thing. I truly do. And I understand that, some of you may be a little higher on Steen than perhaps I am. But you had somebody come in and completely buy in, completely switch positions, and did a great job. Got all pro voting. And that was one short year in Stoutland University. Could you imagine him having a full year, heading into it, knowing he is the starting right guard, the confidence that he just built up the entire year? I think he could be even better. And yeah, you're right. Tennessee Titans, whoever, can certainly pay him $10-12 million. That's great. But you wouldn't. I would take him for 7 or 8.
Yeah,
I absolutely would. The continuity in the line, I think, is crucial to continuing on what was one of the greatest running back seasons in NFL history, much less for the Eagles. Why would you want to try and break that up? And why would Mekhi Becton want to go anywhere else? Same thing for Zach Bond. Let's be honest. They really weren't much elsewhere. You come to Philadelphia, you immediately become part of the family. You have your best career in your professional life. As Dive said, you've already gotten quite a good amount of money. And yeah, you never know what somebody is holding as the top of what they want, and maybe it is money for Becton, and he could probably get it. But smart thinking on both sides would be to get a deal done, bring him back, keep the line the same way it was, make sure that you have the Steens and the Keegans and the whoever as your backup, because injuries happen quite a bit on the offensive line. And you keep this thing going, and you go ahead and you break that record for Saquon Barkley next year. Keep it flying, Philly.
Can I comment on that?
No.
No. It's funny because we're after the show, we're going to break down the top quarterbacks in the draft. Probably the next worst position group is offensive line in the draft. And there's not a lot of great offensive tackles, but what there is a few of in that like day 2, day 3 are some fun like developmental interior guys that can maybe push outside down the road. So for me, that's a big part of it as well.
Sure. Yeah, no, I get that. And you're right. Interior offensive line in general, not great. And you're right. There are a few guys that I wouldn't mind grabbing, but I think we already have a pretty good depth as is.
You're going to lose a bunch. You're going to lose probably 3 or 4 of your depth pieces, and that we're going to go over, I think.
Sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's keep rolling. Let's go to running back with Kenny Gainwell. And Ryan, I feel like I have to throw this one to you first. So Spot Track says that Kenny Gainwell has a $1.6 million market value. I'll throw those numbers out for frame of reference. Becton's was 10.1, by the way, per Spot Track, for whatever that's worth. Gainwell's is at 1.6. Ryan, stay or go for Kenny Gainwell?
Oh my. Get out. Listen, we saw enough from Will Shipley to know that he could easily fill the Gainwell, role. And I'm thankful that Krabby Oldman isn't here, who is going to spout out all these ridiculous Kenny Gainwell, he was the most productive on third down and when the weather was under 30 degrees and blah, blah, blah. I don't care. I cringed every time that man got into the field. I don't want to see him. He was a great blocker. He did a good job. He did his job. But I'm sure Kenny Gainwell can go out there and get more than 1.6. And I'm glad that some other team can go and do that. Let the young kid take the number 2 spot, and or go out and draft another guy in the mid rounds and compete. And you also have Davis Price. We're fine. We don't need Kenny.
Kenny Gainwell's kind of always the bridesmaid, never the bride of Philadelphia running backs, because he's been a backup to all pro running backs like 3 years in a row now. And at a certain point, I know Saquon Barkley has said that he could be a feature back somewhere. I would love to have Kenny Gainwell back. He's the guy you want in your running back room, but I think he's going to want more touches. I think he's going to want a chance to at least be a 1B instead of a 2 next year. And I don't think that's there for him in Philadelphia. So I'd love to bring him back. If I'm Kenny Gainwell, though, I would go somewhere else next season for sure. Dibes, what about you?
Yeah, I think of Kenny Gainwell this past season, and he blew away my expectations. He was a first down machine. He had 15 first downs. A lot of those coming on third downs, third and longs, whether that's as a runner, whether that's as a receiver. This is the question. I love this comment from Brandon. How good is Will Shipley's pass protection? Not good. We don't really know. And I think that's going to be something we watch this offseason during minicamp. It's one of the top storylines. I don't expect Kenny Gainwell to return, but I wouldn't be upset if he does anyway, because he played his role really well this year. There were times when he was just a, third down to first down machine. The one game he had, 3 first downs in big moments. How many missed tackles did he break this year? He was solid, man. So I don't expect him to return, but I wouldn't hate it.
All right. David, what say you?
his pass pro is valuable. He'll get the opportunity to go see his value to another team, but he could always decide the grass is not greener and return on a 1-year contract. He's a perfect fit as the backup. He accepts his role. He does everything well. If I could sum it up in 3 words, think Boston Scott. He could be that guy who just keeps signing 1-year deals and keeps coming back for a while.
So he's going to be like, so it's like Andy Reid and like Reno Mahe, and this is going to be like Nick Sirianni and Kenny Gainwell.
I mean, I'd put it at like 51%. I mean, it's almost a coin flip, but I do think he loves being there, and I don't know that Shipley has earned the trust in the pass pro the way Kenny Gainwell has. I mean, he clearly didn't this season.
Yeah, listen, Shane, you know how in the beginning I said there was nothing that could bring me down? That would bring me down. A series of 1-year deals to keep bringing Kenny Gainwell back. My God, that would absolutely ruin my offseason.
You'd finally get the chance to get that back tattoo. You never know. You could do it next year.
I'd be really happy.
Keep going.
I'd be really happy if Gainwell's back. I just don't think
Agreed.
he will be. So let's keep it rolling here. Fred Johnson, offensive tackle Fred Johnson. Spot Track does not have a market value for him. He's apparently not one that they cared enough to do that for, but he does have $5.6 million in career earnings. He's been with the Eagles for a couple of years. Dibes, thoughts on Fred Johnson coming back?
I would imagine he looks to get a starting job somewhere else. I think he goes. Although he does have, some familiarity with the offense. Like I said, there's a lot of guys we're going to get into on this offensive line. I mean, the Eagles already got rid of one in Nick Gates. So it wouldn't be terrible to bring back a guy that knows the system. Fred Johnson, look at the offensive tackle group in the draft. It's bad. Why not? I'll say stay.
All right. Ryan. I don't know what just happened there. Ryan, Fred Johnson, stay or go?
Yeah, wow. That was somebody's going to clip that. Yeah, absolutely stay. The depth of the offensive line is crucial, and Dibe said it. There really isn't a lot out there in the draft, and this is a guy that's familiar, knows what he's doing, knows his role, and can come in a pinch. I'm all for Freddie Johnson to stay.
All right, David.
Yeah, I mean, Johnson stepped up when he needed. It'd be a surprise for me to see him leave the building. He started 6 games in 2024. He's valuable on the roster. I'd pay him to return. He's a great locker room guy. In addition to everything else, he continues to develop, and he's reliable. And Travion Henderson's going to be like a top 50-ish player. Like the Eagles, 0.00% chance they're taking a running back in the top 50 picks.
Yeah. It was he went up. There was like 2 weeks with Fred Johnson where he went up against Brian Burns, and then who was the Bengals pass rusher? I'm drawing a blank. Cherry Hendrickson. He held them down. He did good.
Fine.
Yeah. I would love to see Fred Johnson back. If you get him back as like a $3 million deal to be your backup swing tackle, especially if you're thinking that Tyler Steen might be your right guard, because then who is your backup tackle? So there's some moving pieces there, but I think they would like Fred Johnson to come back, and I think he'll probably end up back. So a couple of these next guys, we could almost just like thumbs up, thumbs down, but we'll do it really quickly. Paris Campbell, David. Thumbs down for everybody. Okay. Yeah. He's not a guy that you prioritize keeping by any stretch of the imagination. CJ Uzoma. Yeah.
I wish I had more hands.
Yeah. This is too deep of a tight end draft to be keeping a tight end for.
Yeah. Also.
Jack Driscoll, probably thumbs neutral.
Yeah.
Don't care.
Yeah, maybe, I doubt it. Yeah. Okay. So Britton Covey, we can have a conversation about Britton Covey. David, I'll throw it to you first, since you're the only one that didn't immediately flash a thumbs down.
Covey is well liked. He's proven to be a good return man in the punt game. And he was showing some talent before being injured as a wide receiver. He was looking pretty good. I think he's somebody you'll get really cheaply. I don't think he'll be prioritized around the league. Again, I don't know. He's almost a coin flip. I would say maybe 55% if I had to put a percent. I'd say I'd lean a little bit towards him being back. But yeah, I mean, he plays his role good, takes some pressure off Cooper DeJean, which I hate seeing as a punt returner. Every time he does that, I am scared to death. So yeah, just for that alone, I like Covey.
Okay. Yeah, he played offense the first few weeks before he got hurt.
Yeah.
They tried to use him on some of their screens and stuff. He is a good return man. I think there's value in that. You get into, obviously you've got AJ Devontae and you've got Jahan Dotson. And then, Johnny Wilson showed nothing this year, but I would imagine he's around. And so if you keep Britton Covey, you're already at 5, and this is a team that likes to throw darts at wide receiver. But I would bring Covey back and hope he can stay healthy. That's been the biggest thing so far. But even if all he is a returner, I'd be happy to have him back there. Yes, Ryan.
Can I ask the panel here? Do we think this comment is a positive comment or a negative comment?
Covey wishes he was half of Greg Ward.
We have a comment early in the year. Covey was looking like
aspiring to be Greg Ward. Jesus, that's where the bar is. Good Lord.
I will not.
As a 6 wide receiver.
Dibes was such a Greg Ward stan.
My heart is broken right now, Ryan.
Yeah,
I love Greg Ward, man.
But I know somebody who has a Greg Ward jersey.
Nice.
Him.
Yeah,
it's not me.
So yeah, Covey.
One of your 80.
I'd take Covey back on a near minimum contract as a special teamer, and I think the Eagles would too. So
agreed.
Okay, LaRaven Clark, offensive tackle LaRaven Clark. He hasn't played a game since 2022. I would imagine he's super cheap if he comes back.
Practice squad.
Yeah. I
can't invite.
I can't have any more backup offensive linemen come back to the team. Bring them all back.
Put him in the graduate courses in Stoutland University.
Yeah, he definitely needs some more schooling, but
yeah. Okay, well, let's flip over to the defensive side of the ball now, which is where I think there's a lot more interesting conversations to be had. And so we can start off with, the guy. It's Zach Bond. He has, per Spot Track, $8.7 million of career earnings. So this is not a guy that's going to, just wipe away the chance to go make money. He hasn't made that much money in the NFL this far. Spot Track has his market value at $9.7 million, which I'm already going to tell you is absurdly low because he's going to make 13 plus on the open market if he decides to go that route. So how do we feel about Zach Bond? And I know we all want to bring him back, but at what price tag do you bring him back, David? What's your top dollar on Zach Bond?
I do think he's coming back on a 3-year deal paid over 4 years. That he'll probably get like $9 million a year, like $36 million. Like if you broke it down over 3 years, it'd be the 13 you're talking about, but the Eagles are never going to structure it that way. So I do think that. I do think there's also a chance he leaves. I think it's small, but he said something very interesting after the Super Bowl that he said he's never felt this type of stardom before, and it was very different for him, and he did not like the attention. So that was a very curious comment. He said it's going to take some adjusting for him to get used to, because he said when you bring a Super Bowl to Philly, you become a legend for life, and all of the attention has been very hard for him. So, and I get that as somebody who's kind of flown under the radar for his entire career, and suddenly you're an All-Pro and you're at the forefront of everything. But I do think they'll bring him back. I do think it'll be, again, one of those Howie specials where there's a dummy voyage year where they kind of stretch the money out, but I can't see any scenario in which it's over $8 or $9 million a year until it's like 4 years down the road. It'll probably be something 5, 7, 9, 18, but however Howie does it. But I do think he's back.
All right,
and I think they want and I forgot to mention Howie and him were at some thing. I can't remember what it was, and he was like, "Did you?" I don't know. And he's like, did you ever think you'd be an All-Pro? He's like, hell no, or else I wouldn't have signed you to a 1-year deal, man. So yeah, so they definitely, he's like, so don't use that against me in negotiations when we re-sign you. So I do think that they're very desirous of him being back.
Yeah. All right. Dibes, what's your top dollar for Zach Bond? How much would you pay to bring him back?
I mean, what does my heart say versus what does my brain say is very different. My heart is whatever it takes. And we haven't had a complete linebacker like that in a long time. You saw the highlights. I mean, him at the line of scrimmage, all that kind of stuff was incredible. But when he was dropping back in coverage, the interceptions, the deflection, he was just sensational. Just a true playmaker in every sense of the word. 5 forced fumbles. The identity of this team. Like him and Jalen Carter were the faces of the number 1 defense in football. I would probably go around the 10 to 11 range in like a 3-year deal with him, maybe having a player option like in the 3rd year or something. And he could like get more money when he's 30, 31 years old. I hope he comes back, but on the other end, just to play politician, maybe Howie and Vic Fangio come together and say, hey, we're going to take a guy like Jalen Walker in this draft and develop him, and or Jahad Campbell or something along those lines, and start developing. So I see it both ways, but at the end of the day, I would be straight devastated if he were to go. We haven't had this level, this kind of dominant linebacker in years since Trotter, and it would be extremely painful. I would be very upset if he left.
Nakobe being hurt increases this likelihood as well.
It increases his leverage as well.
Very much.
Yeah. Ryan, what about you? What's your top dollar for Bond?
Yeah, I think honestly 12, 13. And yeah, I think he certainly deserves it. Will Howie go up that high? I don't think he will. I think they'll meet somewhere kind of in the middle there, and I could see, 3-year and $30 million deal, kind of 10 a year. Listen, I think this is kind of very similar to Mekhi Becton in the fact that Bond didn't really show much in his career prior to coming to Philly, and was a finalist for Defensive Player of the Year for a reason. He had an amazing season, and a lot of that is being in the defense, in that room with Vic, with the other guys on that defense. And personally, again, obviously, I'm not in his shoes. I don't make the money he makes, but he could still make a great deal amount of money and be successful in his career. I just think it would be in his best interest to stay as well. So due to the fact that I think Howie knows that we may not get Nakobe Dean ever again, and considering he's probably not coming back till halfway through the year, I'd say it'd be paramount to sign Bond over anybody. So get the deal done.
Yeah, this is the guy that you got to get a deal done with, and I'd give him the Matt Milano deal. It's $14.1 million average annual value. I would do that. And
I'm all right with that.
I don't think the Eagles would do that, but I would do that. I'd give him up to that to get him to come back.
Yeah, so. like I said at the start of the show, I'd rather have Zach Bond than everyone else on this Eagles free agency list, and I would do $14 million, but I don't think Howie would. So.
No. Yeah, that's the most he's would ever even spend on an entire linebacking group, let alone player.
It's twice as expensive as he's ever spent on a linebacker room.
Rob had a really good idea last night of just franchise tagging him and just saying screw it and not even letting him touch.
$27 million.
That's crazy.
No way.
There's no way. That's not what the franchise tag is for linebackers.
No, that's edge or something.
He wouldn't get franchised as an edge. He was an off-ball linebacker this year.
Right.
If you're watching us live, let us know in the comments what that number would look like.
I'll look at it.
At least I'd sleep better at night.
Franchise
I'll still go on the record. I'd be stunned if this average contract is over $10 million a year. And I do think he stays. And I do think it'll have dummy years. And I do think it'll be, like I said, like $7 million, $9 million, $11 million. And then in 2029, $18 million. It's just how he structures deals. He's done a ton of, you can look at the way he structured Devontae Smith and Landon Dickerson's deals. look at those 4-year deals and how they blow up at the end of the contract. That's just what he does. And the Eagles just don't use the franchise tag. I mean, that's like slim to 0% chance of happening on almost anyone.
Plus, if Zach Bond's watching this, I hope you know that if you put together 2 more years of what you just did, you own the city. You have keys to the city, the best Eagles linebacker ever.
Sounds like he doesn't want to, though.
Yeah.
Everybody stop talking about him.
It's hard to find out this information because they only listed as linebacker and defensive end. And that's a good point, Pumper. I posted something on X earlier today of just, going over. We've only used the franchise tag 5 times. They're not going to use it, obviously, and we haven't done it since 2012. It's not happening.
All right, well, let's keep rolling. Josh Sweat is the next one.
Calm down, Pump Man. Just calm down.
Josh Sweat, Spot Track has him at an average annual value of $18.8 million, which is high, I think. But also, I do think he's going to be out of the Eagles' price range. Originally, it would be nice to bring him back because he's got all the void years on his deal. If he walks in free agency, he's going to count against the Eagles' cap for $16.5 million in 2025. So if they would have been able to keep him, they could have structured it in a way that it would have freed up a lot of cap space. But I think he played himself out of that in the Super Bowl. I would not pay him near what I think he's going to get paid just due to his tendency to disappear down the stretch, lingering concerns about the knee and things like that. So I think he's going to chase the bag in free agency, as he should, especially with his knee stuff that you never know how long his career is going to be. I think Josh Sweat is long gone. What about you, Ryan?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Believe me, I'll pack his bags for you there, Marshawn. I just don't. I need way more consistent production from my other edge than Josh Sweat is going to be able to give me. And even at $15 million, I don't want to pay him that much money, much less 18 or 20 or whatever the hell he might get. He absolutely is going to cost way too much money for me to even think about re-signing him.
Yeah, I agree. David, what about you?
I don't know how much stock I put into it, but when he left the Eagles facility 2 days ago, he didn't pack his locker. He didn't take anything with him. Everybody else did. Now, take that for what you want, but I do think that he's probably going to go because he hired Drew Rosenhaus as his agent, right, during the playoff run here. So, I mean, that's normally indicative of somebody looking for the bag. But I also, you have to take into account that he's had a lot of injuries, and that's a big knock on a long-term deal for him. For any franchise looking to sign him, there's not gonna be as many who want to sign him for long-term deals. The Eagles were more comfortable with his risk even during the draft, because he would have gone a lot higher in that draft had he not had those medical issues. So the Eagles have always, been there for him. Again, I don't know what it means. I would say it's probably, less likely than more likely that he returns, like 40% or something. But I wouldn't say it's not at all, because I don't know how big of a long-term contract he's going to warrant on the open market. And back to linebackers, Pro Football Talk has linebackers at $19 million for the franchise tag.
There you go. All right, so that's Josh Sweat. What about Milton Williams up next? Milton Williams, Spot Track has his average annual value at $12 million, which I think is that's too ridiculous. Low. That's going to be way higher. Dives, talk to me about Milton Williams.
First of all, I want to just say quickly that I think they could get a better fit for Vic Fangio's defense than Josh Sweat as well. Not only am I not paying it, we saw lapses in with his run defense, and he's a situational pass rusher. That's what he is.
To counter that, who are you going to get, though? If Huff isn't reliable, Sweat's gone, you're down to Nolan Smith and what? This is a team that has a window to win the Super Bowl right now. So you can't draft somebody and hope in one hand and wish that they're going to find a pass rusher like that.
I will give someone a draft pick to take Bryce Huff off this football team.
Absolutely. But the Eagles are hindered there. I mean, and they are in the window right now.
Yeah.
Edge is deep.
Yeah. So
Not the same.
Milton Williams is going to get paid far more than that. And I think Milton Williams is a good player. I think Milton Williams is going to be a classic example of a team buying high on Milton Williams because of the benefit he reaps playing next to Jalen Carter. I would love to have him back. It ain't happening. And I do think the Eagles, and I think Moro Ojomo can play well at defensive tackle. I think you could draft a pass rushing defensive tackle that would have a lot of success too, just because of all the attention Jalen Carter gets. So love you, Milton Williams. Go get that money, bring us a comp pick, but there's no chance he's back in Philly, in my opinion. Anybody disagree with that?
No, I agree. I mean, they're averaging 16 to 24 million on the open market.
Yeah.
And it's one of the highest rising free agent positions, period. And this is a great draft. I'd be shocked if DT isn't their move with their first pick, whether they take one in the first round or trade now.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's roll on then. Avante Maddox.
Sorry. Oh, we're serious?
He's on the
We're
list.
We're going to talk about it? We're not just going to all go thumbs down?
Yeah, no. He's on the list, and he is off the team. There's no way.
He could come back on a minimum. I mean, that's how he ended up here this year.
Yeah, I don't even want that. That means he might get into the game.
Hey, he got into the Super Bowl. He did good.
Oh, listen, one play doesn't save your career, okay?
It made his life.
Yeah. I had to tell my son the other day that the Eagles probably weren't going to bring Josh Sweat back because he loves Josh Sweat. He was like making me vote for him to win MVP of the Super Bowl on my phone when they did the thing.
That's awesome.
He loves his sack celebration. And so he loves Josh Sweat. And I told him that, we'll root for him wherever he goes, but I don't think it's going to be here. But yeah, Avante Maddox gone. Isaiah Rodgers. What do you guys think on Isaiah Rodgers, Dibes?
Big fan. I'm curious what the plan is with D. Slay, whether he renegotiates and restructures his contract and returns. But he played a lot, and when he did play, he was very solid. Major shout out to Isaiah Rodgers. I have to imagine he wants more snaps. I have to imagine he wants to start. And I don't really know what the plan is for the Eagles with D. Slay and that other cornerback spot. So if it was up to me, like all of these guys, if he wants to come back and be that like hybrid starter backup that's on the field a lot, and we know they play a lot in that Vic Fangio defense, but I would love to have Isaiah Rodgers back.
Yeah, Darius Slay basically costs you like $16 million extra if you keep him next year versus just getting rid of him this offseason. It'll end up costing you like an extra $16 million, most of which is going to hit the cap in 2026 and 2027. Ugh. It's interesting. I don't know what they're going to do with Slay. It's the thing where you're in a Super Bowl window and he's been good, but he's also been banged up and he's 35 and maybe going to fall off a cliff. If you told me I had to pick right now between bringing Slay back at that number or moving on and keeping Rodgers, I would say keep Rodgers. Yeah. But if I'm Rodgers' agent, I wouldn't let him sign a deal with Philly until Slay's released because you don't want to be the backup again next year. And ultimately, I think Rodgers will end up going and getting a deal in free agency. But if Slay is gone, I'd like to have him back.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. It's a more fascinating scenario to watch unfold this year. And even Slade mentioned he wants to play one more season, but doesn't know if it'll be in Philadelphia. Rodgers is someone they'll definitely want to bring back if Slade leaves.
Yeah. All right. Ricky Lovato.
Bring back 100%.
Why not?
Bring him back.
He's a long snapper who makes nothing.
Because there were quite a few bad snaps this year. I would not be opposed to a different long snapper next year. But there were definitely a lot of bad snaps on field goals, a lot of bad balls that Braden Mann had to get down for a hold, and I would be a little concerned about that. But give me a new long snapper. I also don't know why he was on my list ahead of a couple other defensive guys, but Brandon Graham. I don't know why he snuck in there ahead of Brandon Graham, Warren Burks, and Ben Van Sumeren, but Brandon Graham, if he wants to be back, he's back. That's pretty much my mentality with Graham, especially if Josh Sweat's leaving, and especially if I can get some poor GM to take Bryce Young and a 4th round pick for or Bryce Huff and a 4th round pick for a 7th round pick or something like that. I would love to have Brandon Graham back. It'd be nice next year.
Agreed.
A cheap 1-year deal. Like the first quarter of the season, he was your best pass rusher. I love his ability to kick inside in certain situations and top to bottom on a short 1-year deal. Maintaining that culture with Sirianni and Hurts. Why not? Why the hell not?
I think what happened is when he got hurt, Brandon Graham took everything and gave it to Nolan Smith. And that's why Nolan Smith started to ascend henceforth. Once he came back, didn't really have enough for 2 players to be that good. So
is this like a Space Jam situation where like they steal his talent?
Maybe
football.
Maybe who knows? Maybe it was Nolan Smith. Maybe Nolan Smith's just evil and he stole his power. I don't know. We got to get to the bottom of this. David, get to the bottom of it. Write an article.
Graham writes his own ticket. He wants to come
ask
back.
Nolan Smith next time you see him if he Space Jammed Brandon Graham.
Yeah, I think that would be
probably. No, he definitely Space Jammed Trey Smith.
He was Space Jammed at the parade.
He sure was.
All right. 2 guys left here. Let's go Oren Burks, Ryan. Where are you at with Oren Burks? You're the linebacker guy.
Listen. A big hell yes. One, we are very limited right now in our linebacking. We don't know about Zach Bond. We hope, but we don't know. You don't know what you're getting in Dean. That was a very significant injury. Most people do not come back the same player. And part of Dean's ability to be great was his speed going from sideline to sideline. And if he loses that step, he is certainly not going to be the same linebacker, sadly. So with that being said, you're going to need somebody. And maybe the plan for next year, heading into the season, is to continue grooming Trot Jr. and go in with Oren Burks and Zach Bond as your starters. That's a very real possibility. So absolutely, regardless if he's not, he is a great backup linebacker, especially when given time to prepare.
All right. I agree with all of that. I would love to bring him back, especially not knowing what's going to happen with Bond, not knowing what's going to happen with Dean. I'd bring him back in a heartbeat. David, what about you?
Yeah, agreed. He's a great insurance policy, and he stepped up when he needed to. And I don't think he's going to garner much on the open market either. So,
yeah, agreed on that. Dibes, do you agree with that?
Absolutely. He was one of my most underrated players in the postseason, and he played his ass off when he knew he was a starter, like Ryan said, and he was practicing with the first team, and he was able to prepare. He was awesome. When he wasn't, he was awful. He was not prepared. He was out of position, taking bad angles to the football. And I what else can you say about Oren Burks? He was an underrated star these last 2 weeks against the Commanders and the Chiefs. Amazing performance from Oren Burks.
All right, so Universal bring back Oren Burks. That brings us to Ben Van Sumeren. I don't even know if we call him a fullback or a linebacker at this point, but either way, bring him back. Sign me up. I'll bring Ben Van Sumeren back. He's not going to cost much, and I'd like to see what he could do, as a fullback where he doesn't have to declare as eligible before every snap. Maybe we can get him a pass or something. David, what about you?
Yeah, agreed. Core special teamer as well. He's an exclusive right free agent. He's back. It's like 99%. He's back.
Easy back.
All right. Dibes, you on board with that?
Absolutely. And I want more of BBS. I want more of what we saw under Saturday. More of him in the passing game. Like I think we're just scratching the surface of what he can be. I don't know if that's a BBS thing or a fullback thing. It's all related. But anyway, bring him back.
All right. So there you have it, guys. Our early thoughts on the Eagles pending free agents. stay or go from them. Hope you guys enjoyed this show. Next week, we are planning to revisit our preseason over-under predictions and laugh about everything we were terribly wrong about. It's going to be a good time, so hope you guys come hang out with us for that one. We're going to break out the buzzer and the Red X. So honestly, it's my favorite show of the year every year. So be sure you guys put it in the calendar next Tuesday night at 8 o'clock. We are going to be here doing that. But before we get out of here, let's throw it around the horn for final thoughts. David, you're up first. Final thoughts, anything you want to plug, the floor is yours.
No final thoughts. You can follow everything at PHL, Eagle News, or Philly Sports Network. Thanks again for sticking with us all season. Looking forward to all the off-season conversations. Pre-show, we were discussing how short this show would be, like 25, 30 minutes, and somehow we make these go 45 minutes to an hour anyhow every single week. So thank you all for engaging. We appreciate it all, man. Keep downloading and following everything in the Eagles Pinball Network.
Absolutely. Be sure you guys are subscribed. Ratings and reviews always appreciated. Ryan, what do you have for us?
First of all, I can't wait for next week's show because I'm going to add about 45 trinkets to my desk here just to piss off Marshawn. Listen, this is going to be an interesting offseason. I think Howie has done a fantastic job the last, I would say, 3 off seasons. He's been very solid, especially with drafting and choosing the right free agents. It's funny that the 2 of the bigger names that he signed this year didn't actually factor into the team. So it certainly is a crapshoot sometimes, but let's hope Howie, puts on his, magic pants and signs the right free agents, and let's go from there. Other than that, you can follow me on X at Philly Sports PSA. So make sure you guys are following all these guys. Make sure you're sharing. Make sure you're following Eagles Pin Pull. Make sure you're giving it a 5-star rating. Help us out. And more the better.
Before we move on, when we were talking about Edge, thumbs up or down if you would bring back Hassan Reddick?
What money? No. Yeah.
I feel like the locker
very
room,
small deal, sure, but
I feel like the locker room bad juju there is not great.
I did a poll today, and like 200 people are like all on board for bringing him back.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Just curious.
$4
I probably
million a
wouldn't
year,
go that
sure.
way either.
But
yeah, 1 year, 2-3 million. Yeah, but that's not what he wants.
no. So, all right, Dives, bring it home. What do you got?
We're going live right after this in just a few minutes, talking NFL draft. So come join us. We're breaking down the quarterbacks. Not a great group of quarterbacks.
I wish I had 3 thumbs to go down right now instead of just 2, but
horrible. And I will say I'd rather have Tanner McKee than the majority of the quarterbacks we're going to be talking about in a few minutes. So come check us out.
That's a hell of an endorsement to
I
watch
know,
the show.
right? Take your time. Just
Well, as soon as Shane gave out the list of what positions we're going to be doing, I was like, good. Get the worst position.
I mean,
out of the
that's
way.
why QB is first, because it's not impacted much by the combine, and from an Eagles perspective, it doesn't matter as much. So come hang out with us. You can get all the details on the crappy quarterback the Giants are going to draft.
and just
It's gonna be
watch
awesome.
Tanner McKee highlights on your phone while you watch us on your laptop.
So that's going to do it, guys. Thank you for joining us for the show. Be sure you're following these guys on Twitter. David is at PHL Eagle News. Ryan is at Philly Sports PSA. Dives is at Mr. Crockpod. I am at Shane Half NFL, and we will catch you guys next time.